Hey everybody, this is Kevin, and welcome to an interesting video in that I'm going to attempt to resurrect my original Alpha 3 from the dead. If you remember, that it's been a while, but my last flight and its last flight was pretty much catastrophe in that it didn't deploy the nose cone and it augered in and crunched the body tube, and I put it up on the shelf as kind of a display piece of, well, you know, rest in peace, it's now just a statue. But I got to looking at it and I thought, you know, it might be worth trying to resurrect. One thing I want to do is, obviously there's no way of fixing the crumpled body tube, so I thought about just cutting that out, adding a coupler and maybe 1/2 inch to a 3/4 inch extension piece to get back to original length, and I can just replace that broken center section. So first thing I need to do is measure what the overall length of the tube is going to be when I return it back to normal. So we're looking at, it is 5.5 inches. So when all's said and done, when I cut out this bad section, we need to get it back to 5.5 inches. So what I'm simply going to do is to start out with just cutting the tube in the damaged area, then I'll clean up each edge from there, but at least that way I can get inside and kind of see what we're working with. So I determined this orange stripe right here is about the best location to just get an initial cut. This is by no means an exact cut. It's not going to be a fix-it cut. It's just a way of opening it up and seeing what we have to work with. So let me just go ahead and cut into the tube, and I'm just gonna, like I said, follow that orange line. It doesn't need to be a clean cut, just a cut, just to separate the two halves. There we go. So now I've cut the tube in half, and it gives me something to work with. Now I can see what's going on the inside. Now one thing I want to keep in mind is the launch lug right here. I really don't want to go below it because then I'm gonna have to break it off and re-glue it. So I'm thinking, it looks like I can just go ahead and cut a nice line straight with that launch lug. And yeah, I'm just looking on the inside. Nothing too scary looking on the inside there. So what I want to do first is just wrap some tape around that line, the launch lug line, just to give me a straight line to work with. So this will be my cut line. There we go. So now I can just follow that line with my knife, and we should get somewhat of a clean. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm going to let the coupler kind of fill in that gap, and then I can always fill it in with some putty later. But now I do want to be very careful with my cut and follow this tape line. And I'll speed up the video a little bit so this doesn't put you to sleep. Okay, still not perfect yet, but the coupler is going to help out in that sense. But I can kind of use the nose cone to maybe spread it, maybe kind of get the roundness to it again. All right. We're making progress. So now, quite a bit here needs to get replaced. I'm gonna get my tubing cutter. Hopefully, this will all fit over the decal. but there's a chance it won't, and it's not, which is fine. I'll just use the same technique I did with the tape. I was hoping that that might work because it gives me a platform to run the knife around, but I'll just make do with this. So let's see, the lowest part of damage is be right there. Alright, nice straight clean line. And I want to keep as much of the original tube as possible. So there we have it. Now obviously we've lost about 3/4 of an inch. But I'll make that up with a coupler. I'm going to make up a little cardboard coupler and an outer tube, and we'll go from there. Okay, one thing I want to show you before I insert the coupler in the new body tube is I did go ahead and take advantage of the openness and installed a Kevlar shock cord mount. And what I did was I drilled, not sure if the light can find it or not, but not from this angle, unfortunately. But I was able to drill 2 holes into the thrust ring, and you can kind of see where they came out there. And then I went ahead and ran my Kevlar through, tied a slip knot onto it, and then secured that. So this extension is going to go out the front of the tube, and this will eventually lead to my rubber band, but this will at least give some strength to the shock cord system inside the tube. So from here now I can go ahead and insert the coupler and the eventual tube again. Okay, so now I've got the initial coupler in the base of the tube. Now I'm just going to put a bead of wood glue on the inside of the body tube. And again, when I attach this, I'm going to leave a 3/4 inch gap to make up for that loss in the section that we cut out. So let me just spread this around with my finger. Wipe that off. And set that in. And one thing I'm going to have to keep in mind too is keeping the tube straight while it dries. So let me get a straight edge ruler to do 2 things. One, to measure my 3/4 inch. So about 1/8 of an inch more in. There we go. And then I'm simply gonna use that straight edge to ensure that the body tube is straight. Okay, and give it a quick visual as well. Is it pretty? No, but we're not going for cosmetics here, we're going for effectiveness in reality. So now I'm going to let that sit. And come back to it. Okay, now that I've got the coupler glued in and secure, in addition to the wood glue that I used on the ends of the coupler, I also ran a thin bead of CA along the seam just to help hold it straight while the wood glue dried. So now that everything is dried and secure, what I did was I took an additional piece of cardboard tubing from the same roll actually that the coupler came from, and I just cut it to fit that gap, and it's going to fit in that groove nicely like so. And again, whatever little residue, or not residue, but gap that remains, that'll be filled in with putty, and then I can just go ahead and paint this whole section black, and I think that would suffice. Is it going to be beautiful and perfect? Absolutely not. But again, at this point, I'm looking for functionality as opposed to cosmetics. One thing I do want to do is, before I glue, and I'm going to use glue CA also on the ends, but I want to run a bead of wood glue down the center, just because the wood glue does absorb well into the wood and will help hold it in a more secure fashion, and kind of act as that filler as well. Okay, paper towel. Okay. Getting a little messy, but I'm doing my best here. So I'm going to take my little coupler cover and anchor it over that seam line, and I'm going to fit that in, and I'm going to glue it with some thick CA. Just to help hold it. Shot a kicker. Okay, and then wrap that around. And lay down a bead of thick CA on this end as well. Alright, let me clean up my mess while I've got a second. Okay, now I just need to cut one little gap filler for this center section, and we should be good. And it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, because I am going to fill this in with putty, so the gaps are not that important for now. Okay, sorry some of that was off camera. Very rough finish, but it's solid and secure. And that joint is now probably stronger than it ever was. So if this were to go back, do another nosedive on us, I believe it'll break everywhere but there, to be honest with you. So I'm going to let this all set up and dry. I'm going to do some sanding, some putty filling in on the gaps, and then we'll put a final coat of black over it, and it won't look too terrible. It won't look like new, but it won't look terrible, and hopefully she'll live to fly again. Okay, so from this view it looks perfect, right? Well, as I rotate it over, you can see the repairs are done. I've got the putty filled in the gap and sanded as smooth as I'm gonna make it. I mean, I could spend another hour perfecting it, but it really isn't worth it. So I'm pleased with the way it came out. I'm going to mask off some of the front part and some of the tail part and spray paint this center section here a solid gloss black. Hopes in that it'll match close enough. Again, I'm not too worried about the cosmetics on this rocket, but I just want to prove that this fix does work so I can implement it on some other rockets that I've got with similar damage, and hate to say it, but any future damages that I may incur in future flights. But anyway, I'm just gonna kind of run this as a test bed. I'm gonna mask the front parts off and the tail off and shoot it with some black paint, and hopefully it will fly as good as I think it's gonna look. So I'm not gonna show the flight on this video. I'll save that for my next launch days video. So stay tuned for the next time I go out to the range and do some launches, and hopefully you'll see this make a successful flight. Thanks for watching.